Hi, this is Dustin Hausner. I'm the Jewish Outreach and Program Director at the Wayne YMCA. All our Jewish programs is funded through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. As you can see by my lovely bow tie, this is a special interview for July 4th, and we have a wonderful guest today who I've been told very specifically to call him by his first name, Carl, and also his last name is Singer, who has a very short, interesting story about the last name, actually.
Okay, good morning and or afternoon. When we first came to America, we were on a boat, obviously, and the name was spelled Zynger, although all the relatives spelled it Singer. And as we walked down the gangplank, there was nobody waiting for us because they were in the S line and we were in the Z line. In any case, going back a little bit, I was born on a freight train in post-World War II Europe. I came to this golden land of opportunity as a child. Um, Grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, which is why I have this terrible Midwestern accent. I got drafted in 1970 out of graduate school. I served in the Army Chief of Staff's office, went from basic combat training to one of several large wooden desks that I would serve under. I eventually got a direct commission to first lieutenant and served for a total of 31 years on and off, active and reserve, and left as a colonel. I also managed to get back and finish my Ph.D. A quick story that I always like to tell people is that when Colin Powell and I were office mates, I had the bigger desk. Uh, Quick explanation. There were 4 private offices in the back of our meeting area, and there were a bunch of bullpen desks where everybody, including Lieutenant Colonel Powell, and then Specialist 4, I think it was at the time, Carl Singer. And when one of those big desks opened up, none of the lieutenant colonels wanted to take it because it would be showing up your peers. It's like, what's this guy doing in the big office kind of thing. So they gave us the junior guy, and hence I had that. July 4th is coming up. I want to briefly talk about 3 holidays that are military, we'll say, when people sort of think about the Army or the military.
Before we jump into the 3 holidays, just for anyone who's unfamiliar, because I do want the, you have a beautiful hat on. It says JWV. Can you just briefly explain what that is? And then I'm happy for us to go into the 3 major holidays. I want people to know
Okay.
what that is for those.
JWV has different colored hats, I guess. This one and the 4 stars. I was the national commander of the Jewish War Veterans from 2016 to 2017. So 1-year sentence or term, and it actually was a great opportunity to represent this fine organization nationally. I got to have breakfast at the White House, a picture with President Obama at the time. Spent time at Arlington National Cemetery, sat on stage as folks on Veterans Day spoke about the cemetery and of course about veterans. Leading into 3 holidays, we're going to talk about July 4th, but briefly, there are 3 holidays involved. Memorial Day, which began as Decoration Day, is a memorial. It's a time that it was called Decoration Day because after the Civil War, folks would go to graves and put flowers on them or whatever. They would decorate the graves. Veterans Day coincides with the end of World War I, 11/11 at 11 o'clock. That's November 11th at 11 o'clock. And that's clearly a holiday focusing on veterans. Then there's July 4th. For me, July 4th has been pretty much celebratory. Fireworks. One of my sons, whose house is on sort of a rise over Clifton, New Jersey, we can see the Manhattan skyline from his attic. One of these days I'll climb onto the roof, but when the fireworks were on the Hudson instead of the East River, then we could see them out of his window. Basically, July 4th has no down to it, no sadness to it. It's a time for barbecues and so forth. Memorial Day also coincides usually with the opening of the shore, as we call it in New Jersey, the beach, as everybody else in the world calls it. And therefore, it takes on a tough situation. This is supposed to be a thoughtful holiday, and it's really a party holiday, and that's rubs some folks wrong, myself included, I think. But I'm not above having a barbecue on Memorial Day. July 4th brings out the best of the red, white, and blue in most people. For many years, I've gone down to Ocean Fest in Long Branch, New Jersey. The Jewish War Veterans Post down there, Post 125, puts up a tent. They are one of many vendors, so to speak, who put up tents. As a veterans group, we don't pay for the parking spot, so to speak. And we sell hats and we give away flags and such. And the fun part for me is just watching all the people going by our post, by our station, past the American Legion and the veterans, the Disabled American Veterans, DAV, and the Vietnam veterans, to see all the folks going by. And you get a lot of thank you for your service, kind of, or want to buy a hat because of their uncle, aunt, brother, sister served in whatever branch, and we can get them a Navy hat or a Marine hat or an Army hat. So Memorial Day, as I mentioned, is a day of remembering. Veterans Day is a day of also of remembering, but mostly geared towards the veterans. July 4th is a party day, no matter how we paint it. This year, first of all, it's July 4th is the one that doesn't always fall on a Monday.
Right.
Veterans Day is 11/11. July 4th will be on July 4th. This year it's on a Saturday, so I won't be able to go down to Ocean Fest. But it's nice to know that people, even one day a year, feel some spirit and put a flag out in front of their house and such.
So let me ask you, well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that information for people who are not knowledgeable. And obviously, I've certainly enjoyed a number of July 4th celebrations over the years. But you actually have a very interesting, not only family connection, but, you know, when most people think of like July 4th, the Founding Fathers, they don't really think of a Jewish connection that much. So I would love if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Jews have served since long before there was an America. My family connection is that my wife's side, her father's side, been members of the Spanish Portuguese synagogue for a long time. And I remember several years ago when the late Justice Anton Scalia spoke for the 350th anniversary of that congregation. That's how far back it goes. The history of Jewish service in America really goes back to 1654 in a place called New Amsterdam. And I guess most of you know that New Amsterdam is now a little town called New York. One Asher Levy wanted to serve as a member of the guard, really the guard of that little establishment called New Amsterdam. And Peter Stuyvesant, who was the governor of New Amsterdam, he can't defend himself now, so I can call him an anti-Semite. And it took a little bit of influence from management. The Dutch East India Company eventually told Peter Stuyvesant what he had to do. And Asher Levy in 1654 served guard duty in New Amsterdam. And that began a chain of American Jews. Actually, they weren't even American at that time, but of Jews serving in the New World. If you go down to Chinatown, there's a small cemetery that the Spanish Portuguese synagogue has there, and the Revolutionary War soldiers buried there. I had a chance to speak there on Memorial Day of 2019. If you walk, you can actually miss it even if you're walking past, let alone driving past. A tiny little cemetery, but that shows how far back. and they're Jews who served in 1812, the War of 1812, and in the Revolutionary War, as I mentioned, in the Civil War, there were Jews who fought on either side. And one story that came out of that was that there was one soldier who, when knocking on somebody's door, he needed a place for Shabbos.
Wow.
A little different than some
during the
other
war,
places.
that's the thing you get the knock on for.
Yeah, knock, knock. Can I spend Shabbos here? There are lots of interesting stories. Going back to 1802, for example, one half of the graduating class of West Point was Jewish.
Oh, wow. No, I had no idea.
His name was Simeon Magruder Levy, or Simon as became later. There were two people in the graduating class. That's why half of them were Jewish. And again, there have been military leaders of the Navy, of course, Uriah Levy and such. But Jews have served for a long time. A number of Jews, of course, served in World War II. There were also some folks called the Ritchie Boys, named after Fort Ritchie, Maryland. They were German Jews who had come to America right before the war. Their knowledge of language and culture and such made them ideal for going back to Europe and helping do whatever it is that an intelligence organization can do during a war. One of them was a fellow I got to know for a long time, Harry Ettlinger, who was an engineer. Harry, if you see the movie The Monument Men,
yeah,
Harry was portrayed as Shapiro. They decided Ettlinger wasn't Jewish enough, but Shapiro was the guy who overheard the Germans speaking to each other, of course, in German, thinking that nobody knew what they were talking about. Harry got to go to the premiere of that movie because he served as an advisor of sorts, and I kept ribbing him that George Clooney should have played him, not whoever it was. But again, he got to go to the premiere. Another gentleman I knew, Helmut Bodenheim. Helmut spoke with a little bit of an accent. He was very reticent to talk about his military service, but he ended up in Europe again. He come from Germany into America, lived in Philadelphia. He was an interpreter during the Nuremberg trials, and he was a driver for some fellow named William Rehnquist, who was later the Chief Justice. So there are a lot of people who served in many capacities. One last thought.
Please.
I'm sorry.
No, please, as in, go ahead.
There were Jews who, after World War II, suddenly stumbled and found themselves in Israel to help the Israeli. It wasn't even Israel then, but to help in the founding of the state of Israel, and of course the war which broke out immediately upon the Declaration of Independence. And the Museum of American Jewish Military History, that's a mouthful, which is co-located with the Jewish War Veterans National Offices, has some wonderful presentations about that. An Air Force consisting of only 4 planes, but they did their job to some extent. But again, back to July 4th, it's a celebratory, but it's also a chance to remember that Jews have served and do serve. There are some websites, there's a Facebook site and so forth, Jews in Green. There are a number of Jews who serve. There are a number of chaplains who are on active duty in all the branches, well, Navy, Air Force, and Army, who support those Jews. I remember when I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, there was a Jewish trailer, a kosher trailer, where food was stored and stolen. And one day, one of the nearby cities, I think may have been Nashville or Memphis, I forget which, a beautiful display of cold cuts and bread and condiments and so forth and so on for all the soldiers who were at Fort Campbell. And the lay leader of the post was a dentist who was a colonel. And as he started to thank the community for their generous donation of food, the folks basically pushed him out of the way because he was standing between them and cold cuts. But again, on a serious note, Jews have served, continue to serve, and I guess that's the twist I want to add to July 4th. For July 4th, in general, when it's not on a Saturday, have fun at a barbecue. It's a 3-day weekend. We're under COVID right now, so that's going to hopefully people will be mindful of that rather than seeing how many people they can stuff into a phone booth or something equally dangerous. Thank you.
No, well, I really do appreciate you making the time. And for anyone who is enjoying this conversation with Carl and learning about the Jewish war veterans, we're actually going to have a larger interview coming up with where we're going to go through more details. But for now, I would love to wish everyone a happy July 4th. Please stay safe. Please stay healthy. Carl, an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Very much appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Have a happy 4th of July, everyone. Happy 4th of July, Carl.